What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. This is part 2 of my top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. I did 32 through 11 yesterday. Now I'm doing the top 10. I am pretty excited to unveil the order that I have my top 10 guys in. This is the part of the list that most people care about the most. I may or may not have a couple of hot takes in my top 10. But before we get into it, you guys know the drill around here. Mott's applesauce if you're ever hungry, thirsty, whatever it might be. Mott's applesauce will satisfy whatever satisfying you satisfy with the Caveman guarantee. I promise it will never fail you. Alright, so a quick disclaimer before I get into my top 10 list. As I mentioned yesterday when breaking down my top 32 quarterbacks list, I did not only a numbered ranking, but a tier list as well. So not only did I rank them 1 through 32 numerically, I also went ahead and divided them into tiers, and that's what I used the colors for. I'm gonna throw the tier color key up on screen right now. So dark blue is gonna be S tier, light blue is gonna be elite, then you have dark green being great, you've got light green being above average, you got dark yellow being average, light yellow being below average, and then of course red being bad. As you know, this is the part 2 of my top 32 quarterback rankings list, and this is the top 10, so you're only going to see 3 different tiers. So let's start with the second half of the great tier being 8 through 10. I have the other half of the great tier in 32 through 11, the part 1 video. But as you can see, 8 through 10 goes as follows: Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, and then Joe Burrow. We're already starting off with one of the hot takes that I was talking about. Having Derek Carr inside of my top 10 list is probably controversial to begin with, but to have him over Joe Burrow, I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with this. Long story short, my reasoning for this is that I think Derek Carr's had the shit end of the stick for the entirety of his career. The most notable receiving threats that Derek Carr has had at his disposal ever since he got in the league in 2014 goes as follows. Amari Cooper has been the best one, then Darren Waller, who is struggling to stay healthy for his life. Hunter Renfrow is now coming along very nicely, then Michael Crabtree and a slightly younger Jared Cook. It's just not been pretty for the poor guy, on top of the fact that he's never had a defense ranked better than 20th in the entire NFL. The best defense he's ever had was ranked 20th. The offensive line play throughout his career has not been too hot either. I think this guy just needs a supporting cast, which he now has going into 2022 to really show what he can do. This past season, though, 2021 was what really sold me on Derek Carr. Not only the football player he is, the leader he is, but the human being on top of it. This guy was the backbone, the glue to that entire Raiders franchise, and they would not have snipped 500, let alone a playoff spot, if it weren't for him. The John Gruden incident happened earlier in the season, which led to an interim head coach for a majority of the year. Then the Henry Ruggs incident happened. Damon Arnett, one of the team's better cornerbacks, was flashing a gun on social media. Former first-round pick, everybody. The state in which that franchise was in at one point in 2021 was just, it was drowning, and Derek Carr single-handedly swam to the top and made sure that team stayed afloat. Like I said, this team had no business sniffing 500, let alone a playoff spot, but Derek Carr did this all while Darren Waller was hurt for a lot of the season, and he had Hunter Renfrow as his best receiver, along with Bryan Edwards and Zay Jones. Carr threw for almost 5,000 yards at 4,800 this season. Basically no help around him in the receiving core. The offensive line was completely brutal. The franchise itself was completely sinking. I mean, this guy, he just did it all, and I admire him for that, and that is why I have him where I have him. Joe Burrow, on the other hand, I admire his toughness. The dude took a lot of licks behind that offensive line, but I do think at the end of the day, he was a beneficiary of that fantastic weaponry he had surrounding him. And that Bengals defense, although it wasn't the best during the regular season, came up big when it had to throughout the postseason. Every single game that they won in the postseason, it was because the defense made a big play at the end of the game. So I give Joe Burrow all the credit in the world, and I do think he's a top 10 quarterback, but I think 10 is where I'm putting him at the moment until further notice, and I have Derek Carr over him. As far as Russell Wilson goes, he's certainly not as high in my list as he was prior to 2021, but he just had an injury-riddled season, and that team was just not good in front of him. So I do think we're going to be seeing the old Russ over in Denver. The idea that he's washed is just completely ridiculous, in my personal opinion. He's only 33 years of age, and these days quarterbacks are playing into their later 30s, early 40s. On top of the fact that Russell Wilson is notorious at taking care of his body. He spends like $1 million supposedly on his body and his health each and every year, so I don't think he's going to be physically declining anytime soon. Just gonna need to put that production back on the field, and I'll be able to comfortably move him back up this list, and I am very confident that he'll be able to do that. Alright, time for the elite tier being 4 through 7. We got Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, and Matthew Stafford. I know people want to put Tom Brady at the top of their list, or at least in their top 3, but he's just physically not there for me in comparison to the other 3 guys that I'm sure you're guessing are in my top 3. But he still wins at a ridiculous rate, and he's still playing football at a stupid high level for his age, so I mean, he really can't be outside the top 5. Justin Herbert and Deshaun Watson are almost interchangeable in my mind. I am ranking Deshaun Watson based on what we've seen last from him in 2019, and that was one damn good quarterback. Justin Herbert has been balling out as of late. He's a young star in this league, and he's going to be one of the best for years to come, so it's kind of hard to determine who goes above who in this case. I guess it just all comes down to your perspective on Deshaun Watson. I'm going to rank him at his best because I feel like that's the safest way to go. I also slightly sprinkle in the idea that he's going to be rusty coming off of a big break, so that's why I have him under Justin Herbert. And then Then, of course, we've got Matthew Stafford, who is a Super Bowl winner, granted. But there were some points during 2021 where I'm like, what in God's name is this established veteran doing? I mean, he was getting sacked and he just like underhand haul the ball into the air and it would get picked off for a pick six. It's like Matthew Stafford had some bad moments, man, despite winning a Super Bowl. Nevertheless, he's still an elite talent in this league. And I think, like I said, if you're viewing Deshaun Watson on his 2019 form, right behind Deshaun is a good place for Matt Stafford. And finally, we get to my top three. This is the S tier of quarterbacks. And this is what I would consider my other hot take of my top 10. I think Aaron Rodgers is third out of the big three. Aaron Rodgers is incredibly gifted and most likely one of the most talented quarterbacks that we've ever seen play in the NFL, and I can acknowledge that. But the other two guys in Aaron Rodgers' neighborhood are also incredibly talented and extremely gifted. I mean, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are two specimens that we have really never seen before, and I'm talking even over Aaron Rodgers. So I use two major factors in order to rank these three quarterbacks. One being the ability to produce and win on the football field. That goes for any quarterback, of course. The other major factor is physical capabilities. What can you do on the football field physically that other quarterbacks simply would not be able to dream of doing? Of course, when Aaron Rodgers is being compared to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes at this point in his career in the physicality aspect of things, he's going to lose 10 out of 10 times. So he should, in theory, be able to make up for it in the production and the winning, but his inconsistency, his inability to win in the postseason when it matters most, when it's all coming down to what's on his shoulders, he just can't do it, and he's shown it time and time again, and that's where he's supposed to be able to make up ground when in comparison to the physicality aspect, and he just simply cannot. So if that makes sense, which I think it does, I have Aaron Rodgers behind Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Granted, Josh Allen hasn't won too much at this point in his career. Just such a different specimen in comparison to Aaron Rodgers. It's really not comparable, especially because of the age. And then there's Patrick Mahomes, who fits right in between my big two major factors perfectly. Patrick Mahomes is still a tremendous athlete, and he deserves all the credit in the world for his mobility, his ability to throw on the run. The dude's a freak. And of course, he's already won a Super Bowl. Granted, he had a massive collapse against the Bengals. That's still not enough in my mind to dethrone him. He's played in a ton of tremendously meaningful games in his career, and never once, beside for that Bengals game, did I look at him and say, you know what, you were the reason they lost. I think it'd be foolish to bet on the fact that Patrick Mahomes will not be finding himself in another Super Bowl in the rest of his career. So with all of that in mind, that is my top 10. I'm going to throw the top 10 on screen right here, and in a couple seconds, I'm going to throw the entire top 32 on screen as well. If you have any agreements, any disagreements, let me know any thoughts you have down in the comment section below. I make these so we can conversate. I'm going to do the top 32 in the NFL for each positional group, so be on the lookout for that. But if you enjoyed, as always, please like, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. And go to Twitter, follow me over there, I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in my description that I think you should check out, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.